Welcome to the Pint Glass Football Podcast.
What is up, PGF Nation? We are back. Senior Bowl is in the books. Shrine Bowl is in the books. The NFL draft season has officially started. We're going to kick it off here on PGF, start talking about what we saw from Senior Bowl week, talk about some of our favorite players. I've got a handful of guys I really like. Alex has got some guys he really likes from the Senior Bowl. And then my first mock draft 1.0 is going to be coming out soon. That's going to be dropping on the newsletter, but we're going to give you kind of an exclusive sneak peek on the first 12 picks of my mock draft, and then we'll come back at a later date and give you the rest of the mock draft. But if you're not subscribed to the newsletter, guys, sign up for the newsletter, pintglassfootball.com, so you guys can get this bonus coverage. Alex, let's jump into it here. Senior Bowl, man, I love the Senior Bowl. I know you do. This is such a fun time of the year because this really, they say the draft starts in Mobile, and it really does, because every year it kind of sneaks up on me. All of a sudden it's like, oh man, it's Senior Bowl. Here we go. Time to jump into these prospects. Of course, we've been watching college football throughout the year, but this is kind of the time where you start getting reacquainted with some of these guys and then discovering some new guys that maybe were under the radar, some guys that maybe played at smaller programs, guys that maybe didn't play at the big power schools that maybe you overlooked a little bit. First guy, Alex, and I know he's on your list too, so let's start with him. Bud Clark, the safety out of TCU. I wrote about this guy on the newsletter as well, guys, but man, he entered the Senior Bowl with a lot of production, and he did not disappoint at the Senior Bowl practices. Consistently was flashing in coverage, interceptions, just making plays all over the field. I think he's a standout for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy was, first off, he was covering at first, and then the picks started to come. And it was picks that you were like, I didn't see that one. I didn't even know he picked it until you look back and saw that he not only popped it up in the air, but popped it up into the air and then picked it himself. So those were things that make you go, huh, now that's a guy. Now, whether he'll be a first round pick, I think depends when he runs the 40, but that'll come, later when we get to the combine. But right now he's showing up on tape.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy I think was viewed as a mid-round pick, but when you put together a Senior Bowl like this, that's going to climb you, right? Like, and to your point, depends on what he does at the combine. We got to get the measurables, got to get the 40 times, some other key measurements. But this guy's got great tape. I mean, 21 pass breakups, 4 seasons at TCU, 15 interceptions. So he's a ball hawk, 201 tackles. So he was a productive player at TCU. Like I said, at Senior Bowl, he really flashed in the one-on-one drills. His versatility, I thought, stood out. Coverage, being able to come down to tackle and make plays, just a lot of energy. I mean, this guy just seemed like he had a lot of energy, a lot of juice. I thought he was easily one of the best defensive players at the Senior Bowl. What a defensive class, by the way. This is starting to really look like a dominant defensive class. And Alex, so let's stick with the defensive team here, because I think if there's one guy that really stole the show in Mobile, it was Kyle Lewis, the linebacker from Pittsburgh. Yeah. And I know you love these Pittsburgh guys, man. This guy had maybe the best week out of any prospect. I mean, he was consistently just making game-changing plays. He had 3 interceptions at the Senior Bowl. I mean, you would talk about a guy with a motor who gets after it. Now, there was questions about his ability to cover at the next level. I think he put those worries to rest here, because this guy not only can play the run, he absolutely was outstanding in coverage.
Right. And the one thing I missed on a few of these guys, I missed their size. So that's number one. But if we're just talking about what we see, this is what the Senior Bowl is about, is what you see on the field. It's not about the build a clone or build a bear type of play. This is just, what do you see on tape when they get on film? And that's what you saw. You saw him cover. We not only saw him cover plays, but we saw him get the interception, which tells me he'd be perfect in a cover 2 defense and just out there trying to cover tight ends, cover running backs out the back.
Yeah, he's a little bit undersized for linebacker. I think a lot of people are projecting him to move to safety. And I think that's why they wanted to kind of see the pass coverage skills. And he did not disappoint, like I said. I mean, this was a guy who really showed off the athleticism, smart player. His read and react quickness was absolutely on display. out there at the Senior Bowl. And this was a guy coming into this week that I think a lot of people kind of projected as a mid-round guy, maybe a fourth-round guy. I saw some people saying maybe fourth or fifth. I think after a performance like this is a guy that legit might be a second-round pick. I think he looked that good. I think he literally moved up a couple rounds with this performance. Now, obviously, the combine is kind of the final check mark, right? We always talk about, like, let's see kind of what he runs. But I liked the speed, the competitiveness I saw from this kid, agility, instincts. And he's got to be one of the biggest risers during this early draft process so far.
Again, this will come down to what he runs in the 40, right? Where we'll find out what round he will go in. If he runs a 4.6 or 4.7, he's probably going to go around the fourth or fifth round. But if he runs a 4.5 or 4.4, 4.3, he's probably going to be in the first 3 rounds. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
Alex, tell me about one of your favorite guys, because we were talking before we turned the mics on here. There was a guy that really stood out that you really liked here at Mobile.
Yeah, okay, so then we have to be talking about Tyron Montgomery here. So Tyron Montgomery is a guy, one of the top-end basketball guys, and then I think COVID happened. I believe COVID happened. He went home, and then he came back. He has a younger brother who was playing football and as a quarterback, and he went home, he ran a couple of routes, and came back as a football player, came back at John Carroll University, and got himself invited to the Senior Bowl, worked himself up to get invited to the Senior Bowl. Let's just say it like that. And now he's out here showing what he's learned so far. I don't see him as a first or second round pick, maybe not even a third round pick, but perhaps a late third round pick. So when you get to the third and fourth and perhaps fifth round picks, this is a guy that you're going to say, okay, I can bring him in. He is a bit older, a little bit older than the other guys, but if you can get this guy on a 4-year run and teach him the rest of the way to go from where he got in college to where he needs to get to in the NFL, I think by year 3 or year 4, you're going to be looking at a guy. I'm not saying he's going to be your next Pook or anything like that, but you're going to have a guy that's going to get you 800 to 1,000 yards and maybe about 7 to 10 touchdowns with his ability to get open and catch the ball.
Yeah, he absolutely flashed, man. There's no doubt about it. And I think a lot of people were saying, wait, who is this guy? John Carroll? Where is John Carroll? I mean, small school guy, completely under the radar guy, which, look, I got to give a lot of credit to the people who run the Senior Bowl. For them to unearth these gems, it seems like every year they always find guys like this at these small schools that they kind of pencil and say, look, we want the NFL to take a closer look at this guy, and they usually don't disappoint. He didn't disappoint. I mean, 6'1", 185, so not a huge guy, but I think he's got legit NFL size. Like you said, a former LSU basketball walk-on, and here he is now. Some people are saying maybe top 100 pick, which is pretty crazy, because like you said, a little bit older of a prospect, but this guy's still learning how to play the game at a high level. So I think we've just kind of scratched the surface of what he can become once he kind of learns the nuances of the game at the next level. So yeah, he's a guy absolutely to watch, because he went up against some really high-level corner prospects and made some big plays at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he was impressive, man, for sure. Another guy here, I want to talk, since we're talking about small school wide receivers, here's a guy that I absolutely loved. Ted Hurst, the wide receiver out of Georgia State. Not Georgia, Georgia State, folks. Yeah, small school guy here, because, look, this guy, I think, answered one of the biggest questions that these small school prospects face every year. Can he do it against top competition? And this is the perfect platform for these guys to go up against these Power 4 programs, these big school programs, and show, look, I can play with these guys. And let's face it, when you put up big numbers, which he did, he put up big numbers at Georgia State, like he should. He dominated lesser competition. That's great. But now can you do it against the top prospects? He was one of the best wide receivers, maybe the best wide receiver in Mobile. I mean, this guy was absolutely awesome. And what I love about this guy is he's got the size, 6'3", 207, big frame, big hands. I mean, he's got maybe the best release of any receiver at the Senior Bowl. Not to mention, he showed the speed. Now, they didn't have 40 times here, but I don't know if you saw that zebra technology that they were using at the Senior Bowl to track miles per hour. He had one of the fastest tracking speeds of any players at Mobile. So I'm going to be really curious to see what he runs in the 40 as well. I mean, he had a big-time one-handed catch touchdown at practice. I mean, he was making huge plays routinely. This is a guy who is climbing draft boards, absolutely. And look, I think this is a guy, look, was a day 2 prospect coming into this. If he went to Georgia instead of Georgia State, we might be talking about a first-round pick.
Yeah, and here's the thing about, let's just talk about these small schools for a moment. So if you have these guys that come from a small school, it's not the fact that they come from a small school. It's more the fact that you don't know who they are. That's really what it is. You don't know who they are. They're not on your, ABC, NBC, ESPN networks or wherever they're showing college football games for the most part. Unless you're following and you're in Georgia and you're in that specific spot in Georgia, you're not going to see these players at Georgia State. You're going to see Georgia, but you may not see Georgia State. You're going to see these players at these smaller schools or if you went to the school, you're going to pay attention to them more. You're going to talk about them more. We have a guy that's part of our group named Dave who talks about Garindo. He talked about a lot of guys that were coming out that we were like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we'll take a look at them. But then they come on and we're like, oh, wow, you've been talking about this guy and now I see what you've been talking about.
Yep, absolutely. Like I said, it's one of my favorite things about the Senior Bowl, about the Shrine Bowl, getting to see some of these under the radar prospects, some of the guys that played at the G5 level, like you mentioned, a guy that played at John Carroll. I mean, none of us watched this guy play. Who are we kidding, right? Here's a guy that did play in the Power Four, but I think flew a little under the radar, and I think he opened a lot of eyes at the Senior Bowl. Max Ihenachor, and I might have botched that name, so I apologize. The offensive tackle out of Arizona State. This guy really did himself some favors here as far as his draft stock because he looked every bit the part of an NFL lineman. 6'6", 325 pounds, former basketball player. So he's got great size, but really quick, light feet. Really athletic guy for that size. Really impressed, was very consistent. I would say he might be one of the most consistent performers that we saw at the Senior Bowl. One-on-one pass drills really showed out. Strong hands, balance. I just like what I saw from this guy. And I think with a guy like this, he's got room to grow. He's definitely not a finished product, but a guy that I think was coming into this, once again, was kind of viewed as maybe a 3rd round pick, a guy with a lot of upside, but a bit of a project. He might have pushed himself, maybe. It might even be more than that, Alex. I'm thinking, don't be totally shocked if we hear this guy's name at the end of the 1st round. If this guy sneaks into the 1st round, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. So, this is like, I forgot my guy's name from the Houston Texans that went in the 2nd round. But you have a couple.
Aramonte Irsay.
Yeah, yes, Aramonte Irsay. Like you have a lot of these guys that pop up. They're top 100 players. They're top 100 players. So we're looking at them. This guy is more at the bottom. I don't want to say a bottom, but past 60 in the 3rd round. And then he pops up, and then you see him. He shows up in the film. And then the thing about the Senior Bowl, it's missing a lot of those juniors. So a lot of those juniors don't get to play, and you get to see what he looks like against a senior, a senior versus a senior, and what he gets to look like. So you're missing a lot of those third year players that are not going to be there. So he doesn't get to go against every single top back, but you get to see. And you know what? This guy, you might be right about the 1st round. I think he definitely moved himself into the 2nd round.
Yeah, I think he has a chance. I think someone is going to see the size and the skill set just as far as the upside with a guy with such nice, quick feet, light feet, and just someone's going to look at that and say, wow, what could be with a little more work? A guy, like I said, with a basketball background, not a finished product, but with some coaching and some developing, I think he has a really high ceiling. And I think him going to the Senior Bowl and showing out against, let's face it, that was a really good edge group that he went up against. That was probably the strength of the Senior Bowl, right? Was those edge guys. And he really held his own. I thought he really did himself some favors. I know, speaking of edge guys, there's an edge guy that you love out of Michigan. Let's talk about him.
Yeah, Derek Moore. Now, Derek Moore came out. Now, obviously, he's a senior. He's not a junior. He's a senior. He played all 4 years. He just came out of the year away from Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. So, and I think that's key. It's like, this is a guy that came out of those 2 guys not being there, and then him coming on the board. I mean, he was bum rushing a lot of those senior tackles out there. I mean, he was basically walking through those guys to get to the quarterback, and that's a lot of what I saw.
He was a productive player at Michigan, and so for me, when I see a guy who was a productive player, especially in the Big Ten, going up against some of the best competition in the country, 30 tackles, 10 and a half tackles for a loss, and 10 sacks last season. I mean, this was a guy who really got after it. And then he backed it up at the Senior Bowl, like you said, had the viral moment, of course, you know, with who was the tackle that he went up against? I can't remember the tackle that he absolutely destroyed from Miami. So, Alex, I got one more guy that was on my list of standouts from the Senior Bowl. Kalen Black, running back out of Indiana. What was most impressive about him was that he was even at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he shows up to the Senior Bowl week just days after helping Indiana win a national championship. We saw a lot of guys from Miami and Indiana that didn't show up to this event, obviously playing a really long season, a long playoff season, just coming off of that big game. A lot of these guys weren't ready for this moment, and he was like, no, give me my helmet. I'm ready to go. I thought that decision alone really spoke volumes about just how competitive this guy is. 5'10", 215 pounds. I thought he showed really nice, quick burst, hitting the holes. He was decisive. I thought he consistently ran with power, ran behind his pads. I mean, he was bowling over defenders, pushing piles, finishing runs with authority. I was impressed because I loved his tape in Indiana, but he came in there and really solidified himself. I mean, this is a guy that a lot of people had projected as a late-round pick, but I like the physical, tough running style. This is a guy that might have to get reevaluated after this performance because he might be moving up the draft boards too. Now, he's probably still a mid-round pick, but he might have helped himself a couple rounds with the performance we saw at Mobile.
The national championship was just a week ago, not this past Monday, but the Monday before that, where it went down to the wire, and he shows up and he delivers exactly like how you said, and that is what people are looking for. They are looking for not only that, you know, this guy played. What is your attitude when you arrive at the Senior Bowl? What is your makeup? How are you built? How are you ready to take on these guys? Because everybody is out there to show something.
The official ticketing app of Pint Glass Football is now SeatGeek. I can't recommend them enough, guys. I've been using SeatGeek for years. You want to go to a game this season? SeatGeek is here to take the confusion out of buying tickets, making sure you get the best seats at the best prices. With SeatGeek, you'll never have to worry about overpaying for tickets again. How? They put a 0 to 10 score on each ticket, so you know you're getting a good deal. But here's the real game changer. You can get $20 off your first ticket purchase with the code PGFPOD. That's right, $20 off with code PGFPOD. This season, make every game day epic with SeatGeek. Download the SeatGeek app and remember to enter the code PGFPOD to grab your $20 discount. I teased it at the beginning of the episode, guys. I've got my first mock draft 1.0 about to drop. We're going to go through the first 12 picks for you guys. Now, it's 1.0 for a reason because we're early in the process. So I'm just telling you now, there's probably going to be a 2.0, maybe even a 3.0 by the time we get closer to the draft. But this is basically the first draft that I've got for you guys. And we'll get through the second half of these picks at a later date here. But let's get through here, Alex. Number one pick, your Las Vegas Raiders. No surprise here. This kind of seems like the consensus guy. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback out of Indiana, the Heisman winner. That led them to their first national title, undefeated, unbelievable season. The thing I like about this guy, he's got the prototypical size that you're looking for, 6'5", 225. He's very accurate, strong pocket presence, very good decision maker. He's good in the red zone, the 2-minute drill, very polished prospect, good in third down situations, those key moments, right? Yeah. When you're really looking to check those boxes. I think he's a guy, look, I don't think he's a A+ prospect, but I think he's a very good prospect. And let's face it, a down quarterback class, he's the no-brainer guy.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's take a step back. And first, I will applaud the Raiders for getting Clint Kubiak. Let's do that first. Like the Clint Kubiak hire the Clint Kubiak find, and then the hire was a great find and hire by the Raiders. I think when you expand upon the Sean McVay scale, he's shown, and it has shown over the past few years, to at minimum work, right? At minimum, it works. So I'll say that. Now you have the head coach, and now you bring in the quarterback who's mature. I think that's key for the Raiders because they are a very, I don't want to say immature, but they're a very young team. So you have somebody that comes in that's going to be very mature. We'll figure out what they do with Geno Smith later. But, Fernando Mendoza is very, very mature, very, very upfront and very statuesque when he walks into the room. So those two things right there, I like him because of that and because of what we saw in the national championship game where he couldn't make the plays. He didn't have a passing touchdown, but he had a running touchdown, like the important running touchdown that put the team away. It's like he's going to go out there, he's going to do whatever he has to do. And it wasn't just against the Purdue's of the Big Ten. He did it against Ohio State. He did it against Oregon. He did it against the guys that you didn't expect him to do it against.
You're absolutely right. It's not like he just beat up on a bunch of, ACC teams or something. Sorry, ACC fans, but you know what I'm saying? You're right. I mean, you're right. He showed out in the biggest moments on the road at Oregon. Unbelievable atmosphere, a team loaded with NFL players. He was awesome in that game and awesome in great moments. Like you said, Ohio State, which has 4 guys on that defense that are going to go in the first round, played great against those guys, played great against Miami, played great against Alabama. He had a lot of big time games. He played great against Penn State, who's got a bunch of guys that are going to be in the NFL. They might have had a disappointing season, but a lot of talent. So you were right. He checks just about every box as far as that goes. Before we move on real quick, I'll give you my comp because we had a lot of time to talk about these guys more in depth. But I see a guy whose ceiling is a bit Matt Ryan. Mm-hmm. Is the guy I see. If he reaches his peak, I think he's a Matt Ryan type of quarterback. I think his absolute floor would be a guy like Andy Dalton, mm-hmm. who at the very worst, he's going to be a solid starter in this league. I can't see him being anything below a solid starter, but I think if he hits his ceiling, he could be a high-end starter for a long time in this league. Let's move to number 2 here, Alex. And you already don't like this pick, so let's get fired up here. Number 2, I've got the Jets taking Arvell Reese, edge/linebacker out of Ohio State, a guy who is really, really versatile, played off-ball linebacker, played on the edge. A lot of people think he'll play a lot more edge in the NFL, but I think he's athletic enough and explosive enough to really line up anywhere. I think he has game-changing potential as a pure pass rusher, really high ceiling. And another guy, I don't even know if we've seen his best football yet, but elite quickness, elite closing speed. Look, he's my number 1 player in this class as far as ranking goes. And I haven't dropped the rankings yet. We'll get to those guys. But, man, this guy is so impressive. So why not him at number 2, Alex?
Right, and it's not that I don't like the player. It's about what the team does and what the player can do for the team. I think Arvell Reese, to your point, and everything you said, I think is correct. He is an outside linebacker, and the Jets run a 4-3. And that's what he also ran, and that is what also Aaron Glenn ran in Detroit as well. He ran a 4-3 defense. I don't think because he is an outside linebacker, unless he could put his hand in the dirt, which we talked about off mic for a moment, but unless he could put his hand in the dirt, I don't see him as the pick. I like the player. I just don't see him as the pick for the Jets if he can't put his hand in the dirt and be successful. Right? Not just put your hand there, but put your hand in the dirt and be successful. Do what Micah Parsons did, moving from middle linebacker to outside linebacker to, hand in the dirt guy, going after quarterbacks. If he can't do that, I don't think the Jets pick him in this situation. And to me, that would change the getup. That might change the getup in the top 4.
Yeah, I'm glad you said Micah Parsons because that's the comp I have for him. I think he's a Micah Parsons type of player. Like you said, a linebacker/edge, great pass rusher, just really versatile player. But be interesting to kind of see if he fits in what you're talking about. Number 3 pick here, Arizona Cardinals. A lot of different places they could go here. I think the safe pick, the smart pick for them would be Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle out of Utah. A lot of people think he's the best offensive tackle in this draft. Really, really versatile offensive tackle, a guy that can play multiple positions on the O-line. The only position he really didn't play was center, but this is a guy who could play both guard spots, both tackle spots. I think he's a plug-and-play starter. I don't know if he's played his best football yet, even though he's very technically sound and he's going to come in with a really high floor and a guy who's going to be able to protect your quarterback, whoever that is, right? We know there's going to be changes there, but I think this is a building block piece on the offensive line.
Right. So here's a few things. Here's a thing about the Cardinals that we didn't talk about. Let's take a step back and look at them firing the coach. I think they fired the coach because he said he was ready to move on, and I don't think the organization is ready to move on from Kyler. That's number one. So if that's the case, then I guess go ahead and take this guy. Other than that, I trade this pick and try to upload picks for next year.
Yeah, it's not a bad take for sure. Although I don't know with the lack of star power at the quarterback position, I don't know how many of these top picks are going to get a lot of phone calls. So that's going to be interesting to watch too. I'll be definitely curious to see, how active the trade market is come draft night. 4th overall pick, Tennessee Titans. I've got them going with an offensive tackle as well in Francis Mauigoa, offensive tackle out of Miami. Man, this guy is a mauler. Elite size, 6'6", 315 pounds, power player, excellent run blocker. I think he's above average in pass protection, but can really get it done in the run game. Developmental upside, long-term starter potential. I mean, this guy is going to be a plug-and-play guy from day one and an attitude guy. And a guy that comes in and instantly makes your team tougher and more physical up front from day one. And look, you've got this young quarterback in Cam Ward. Now it's time to build this offensive line up around him.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the third offensive lineman they've taken in the last 4 to 5 years, I think. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you know what? Why not? You might as well go after this guy and take him if he's the best offensive line on the market at the time.
Now, Giants have the 5th overall pick. I've got them taking Mansour Delane, the cornerback out of LSU. This is a corner that I think a lot of people have as the number one corner in this class, although it's debatable. There's definitely a handful of guys, maybe a trio of guys that people are talking about as potentially CB1. But this is a physical, really smart, high football IQ, can cover the top wide receivers, has shown that he can cover the top guys at the college level. A guy that has a high ceiling, very versatile in coverage. You can kind of move him around inside, outside. I think he's an immediate upgrade from what they have on the outside because that secondary needs a lot of help. And this is a guy that I think you can plug and play as your number one corner day one.
Now, here's where we'll disagree again. I think the Giants here, I think they have to go. They do need a corner. Let me say that first. But I think the first thing here is I think they need to go offensive line. I mean, I know this is just 1.0, so we'll see where it goes. I think they need to get another offensive lineman because outside of Andrew Thomas, who continually gets hurt, just about every single year, the rest of that line is up for grabs for the most part. So I think they need to get another offensive lineman.
So I like what you're saying there. And the only reason I don't have them taking one is because picks 3 and 4 are the top 2 tackles.
Right.
Because of that, if it was to play out in this scenario, I don't think there's a third tackle that's worthy of that spot. So I think it would kind of force them. If one of those guys is there, I think it's a no-brainer. I think you're right, especially because Mauigoa and Fanu both played right tackle in college. So that would be the perfect fit. But if in this scenario, they're both gone. So I had them going in a different direction here, but you're absolutely right. If one of those guys falls, I'm with you. I think you got to go O-line, especially with your young quarterback. Try to protect him for sure. Let's move on. Pick number 6, Cleveland Browns. I've got them taking David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. This guy really exploded onto the scene this year. Explosive player off the edge, has elite first step quickness, can really disrupt a quarterback. And I think this is a guy who can really complement Myles Garrett, a guy you can put on the other side, take some pressure off of him. He's also good against the run and has shown a lot of improvement with his overall technique and get off. So I've got David Bailey here to the Browns. Once again, another team that could go in a lot of different directions. So I think here you're just in a spot where maybe you just take the best player available.
Again, yeah, I would go in a different direction. I would go more offense. However, just based upon how the ranking is going out, then yeah, I have to go and I guess get more defense for the Cleveland Browns.
Speaking of defense, number 7 overall pick, Washington Commanders. I've got them taking Sonny Styles, linebacker out of Ohio State. Look, this is a guy who I think's got a legit Fred Warner comp Now, I'm not saying he'll become Fred Warner. That's some pretty big shoes to fill, but I think that's the style of player we could be looking at because he's super athletic, really versatile, can play the run, can play the pass, can play multiple linebacker positions, really smart player. I think he is just a plug-and-play, no-brainer starter in this league. Big-bodied guy, 6'5", 243 pounds, but like I said, has the quickness to cover, can pick up running backs out of the backfield, can cover tight ends. So really, really good player. And I think with the Commanders, this is a defense that's not only aging, but really lacks juice. This is a guy that I think you plug in there because, look, they're also getting pretty old at the linebacker spot as well. Bobby Wagner's not going to be there forever. So this would be a really smart pick for them, I think.
Yeah, I can't be too mad at here, especially when you mentioned the comp being Fred Warner. I mean, there's nothing else to do here because you're going to wait for Bobby Wagner to play one more year and then retire or go someplace else. So yeah, I can see this here.
Number 8 overall pick, New Orleans Saints. I've got them taking running back Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. Now, this is a guy who is explosive, big-time playmaker, has unbelievable field vision. He can hit the circle button and spin move. I mean, this guy is an electric playmaker, a home run hitter. I think he's a guy that you could fit in almost any scheme. I think you could play him in a zone scheme. I think you could play him in a power scheme. He can catch out of the backfield. Very versatile player, very complete 3-down running back, a guy that just you plug and play and instantly adds juice to your offense. So when you've got a team like the Saints, they look like they've hit on their young quarterback. Why not give him a piece here to kind of help balance things out and take some pressure off of him with a strong running game?
Right. So here's another one that I'll disagree with. And what I'll say is not disagree, just again, not disliking the play, just disagreeing on the pick. I think 8 and 9 flop. I think they switch. I think they may switch positions, even though I don't think a running back could be taken this high. But if we're just going with 1.0, I think the Saints and Chiefs switch positions, and I think the Chiefs pick goes to the Saints and the Saints pick goes to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility. If the Saints, let's say they don't love Jeremiah Love and the Chiefs do, maybe that's a position where they do flip picks there because I think he would be a good fit for Kansas City as well. Kansas City at pick number 9, like you mentioned, I have them taking Reuben Bain Jr. Man, this guy is an absolute dog. How fun was this guy to watch in that national championship game? You talked about Fernando Mendoza. This guy was in the backfield, it felt like, every snap.
Yeah.
I mean, just relentless pressure, absolutely dominant player, 6'3", 275, big power guy, can really destroy double teams, physical, dominant, quick. Look, there are some questions, and we're going to find out at the Combine. There's a lot of talk about the short arms. Does he have really the right build that you're looking for at 6'3"? People are kind of questioning, does he have the size? Look, the tape doesn't lie, and maybe he drops down in the draft. Let's say his measurables aren't great. Maybe he doesn't test as well as people hope for. Maybe this is a guy who falls out of the top 10, falls out of the top 15. I don't know. I know this. On tape, this guy is a disruptor. So I right now, before the Combine, I can't see him falling too far, and I think it gives them some juice up front there because we know Chris Jones, he's only got so much time left. You've got Karlaftis, you've got some players there, but I think he would be a piece that would instantly upgrade that pass rush.
Well, I'll tell you another player who didn't have the size. His name was Aaron Donald. So, hey, who knows for the most part. So I can't be wrong there. Again, I said I switched picks, but just a pick down at a pickup for these two players.
Yeah, at number 10, Cincinnati Bengals. I have them taking Jermod McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee. Now, I mentioned there's kind of a trio, maybe 4 guys that are kind of in the mix for CB1, and I think that'll kind of get sorted out as we get closer to the Combine. But this guy is really, really talented, really athletic, smart, playmaker, missed 2025 with an injury. That's going to be tough to kind of overcome that. But I think if you go back and watch his 2024 tape, this guy shows elite coverage ability. And I think coming back from that, you've got a guy who could really be an immediate nickel or outside corner. I think he has the versatility to kind of go inside or outside. Bengals need help in that secondary. I think this is a guy you can be a plug-and-play starter.
I mean, to be honest with you here, it's not that I wouldn't take this guy. I think they can pick wherever. They can pick a defensive lineman, they could pick a linebacker, they could pick a safety, they could pick a DB. It's whatever you want for them on defense at this point in time, because they need to go and this whole draft needs to be just about defense for the Bengals.
The Bengals defense is a mess.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of what I was thinking too, Alex, which was why I was thinking, look, let's just get one of the top defensive players on the board that was still available. And he's one of those guys. Now, here's a guy that a lot of people have talked about. At number 11, I have the Miami Dolphins taking Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State. You want to talk about a versatile player and a real chess piece on the defense. He can play multiple spots. He can line up in the nickel. He can line up in the box. He can cover. Just has really off-the-charts football IQ, leadership. Guy is a great tackler in space. He can play the run. He can play the pass. A guy that I think can thrive in just about any NFL defense. You know, half the league is running some kind of quarters, Vic Fangio style defense. He would be perfect in that. I think he'd be perfect in a cover 2 base. I don't think it really matters where you put this guy because he's so talented. He's going to find the football.
Yeah, so I'll say this about the Dolphins. If they go defensive line, if they go linebacker, if they go in the defensive backfield, if they go wide receiver, if they go offensive line, if they go quarterback, I think any of those positions is up for grabs at number 11. And I like the pick for the Dolphins, but I actually take that pick and I move it down one to the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think with Jeff Hafley coming over, former defense coordinator, it kind of got me thinking defense. It kind of got me thinking, okay, where was he going to lean here? You know, he's going to want a guy that can come in and kind of be a day one leader that can do everything because he runs a very complex defense, a lot of different hybrid looks. So I think Caleb Downs kind of being the ultimate chess piece safety kind of made sense for a guy like Hafley. But I like where your head's at. And we're going to wrap it here with the 12th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys. Look, I think the Cowboys would absolutely love if a guy like Sonny Styles somehow fell to them at 12. He would be a name to circle, but he's not available on this mock. So they got to go in a different direction. And I think the secondary makes a lot of sense here. I've got them taking Colton Hood, the other Tennessee cornerback. I think he's also a plug-and-play starter. I think he's an immediate upgrade for this Dallas secondary that's been awful, to say the least, just terrible. This is a guy who's got really good coverage skills. He can play outside. He can play in the nickel. He's, competitive guy. I just think this is a guy that you can take and immediately upgrade a secondary that could really use some juice on the outside.
Yeah, I mean, you got rid of Trayvon Diggs. You saved yourself, I think, 12 to 15. I think it was $15 million. I was telling everybody if they got rid of him, they'd save themselves $15 million. So now you have, defensive backfield full of guys that you just need to, put people there, especially safeties, especially corners. You need both. At the point, you can start at corner, you can start at safety, like I said, with Caleb Downs. So either one here works for the Cowboys.
Yeah, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, one of those guys I think would be ideal. Obviously, in this scenario, they're both gone. So I think you got to go a different direction here. But guys, that is going to do it for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it, PGF Nation. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And be sure to go to the website, pintglassfootball.com. Go to the newsletter because we're going to have exclusive articles coming out, lots of NFL draft coverage coming out, including the full mock draft will be dropping on the newsletter before you get it here on the podcast. So be sure to do that, guys. And once again, I'm Brad Fowler. He's Alex Higdon. This is Pint Glass Football, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Pint Glass Football Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at PGFPODcast.